until I think when Woom came along, right? When the designer, Christian, they were expecting to have their first child and very excited, like he's a cycler, right? And I get to buy my kid their first bike, and quick realization that there wasn't that on the market, something that was designed just for them. And so that's what they did. I mean, so much before the product was even made, it was, okay, what's the children's anatomy? How are they learning things down to, our brakes having the green and the red, like all the things taken in consideration of how children learn, how their body works, what they need to make this experience a really enjoyable one and one that they're not going to get discouraged by.
Welcome to the Delighted Customers Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Slayton, and I'm so glad you're here. I empower leaders to turn indifferent customers into loyal fans. I talk to guests with a wide range of expertise who share meaningful insights and wisdom. We give you practical tips and proven frameworks and share ways to help you delight your customers. I've been doing some research on what's most important to business leaders, and I've heard three major themes. Number one, their employees are burned out and feel overwhelmed. Number two, they're concerned about customer retention. And number three, they want to address customer friction, whether it's controllable or not, but they need actionable results. As a result, I've created the 120-day Quick Start, a 4-step program designed to go from current state assessment to specific strategies to get you actionable results in 120 days. If you want to make a quick impact, check out empoweredcx.com for more information. I'd love to talk to you. Well, my guest today on the Delighted Customers Podcast show is April Obersteller. And April is going to be a little different guest, and I'll tell you why. Because she is the first guest that I've had in a whole bunch of episodes, around 50 episodes, that actually works for an organization that makes a physical product. It's been interesting. We have CX experts, thought leaders, authors, professors, and so forth. And I'm excited. And the product is a fun, unique, mission-oriented product. And we're going to dive into that. But before we do, April, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and visit about two of my favorite things, customer experience and employee experience. So excited to dive in.
Perfect. And I want to get that. I'm going to let you introduce yourself, but you came through Yeti. So I want to talk a little bit about Yeti because that's a really interesting brand. And you are right now like the global CX leader at woom, which is a manufacturer of children's bicycles, which is really interesting. And you oversee both customer experience and employee experience. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, we made the decision, a very intentional decision to combine the both. And so technically my role is, leading the experience function of the organization. So putting the people at the center.
All right. So tell me what led up to you getting that position and how you evolved over from Yeti to Woom.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always so fun to look back in that retro, the journey that you've been on. So I joined Yeti in 2015, I believe, and joined when it was pretty much at that stage where it was that really big, startup to scale up and extreme growth. So hyper growth stage, adding on a lot of people, selling a lot of product, and really figuring out our footing of how to show up in this new season. It was also, of course, a beautiful company that started out of, with two brothers in a garage, and this idea to bring a product to the market that just wasn't there. There wasn't this product on the shelf yet. So I joined on their sales team, and that's the background that I came from. And so on their inside sales team and getting to work directly with the independent dealers. And I mean, it was chaotic and amazing and magic. And it's exactly the type of environment I love to be in, that building stage. So got to join and be a part of that magic and that hypergrowth season. And then throughout my time in sales, I had the opportunity really where we were set up. Our desks were literally, it was a sales row and, a customer service row, and we alternated. And through that setup, I was able to hear, right, all of our team members who were supporting the direct customer. I was able to hear their conversations. And I recognized I loved having my sales conversations, loved talking to my dealers and getting that product out there. But I was very much drawn to what that next row was saying to my left and my right. And so every opportunity, of course, there was emails to be answered from our customer service team. They were completely, it was busy. And they would always be looking if anyone wants to stay an extra hour, come in this weekend, help with those emails, help with those phone calls. I was the first to jump in. And through that organic, shift, I just fell in love with the opportunity to really connect directly to the customer. So when the opportunity arose to lead that team, I very happily said yes and made that shift from sales to service. And from there, it was a whole other season of growing that beautiful team and the services that we had to offer. So that was my journey at Yeti. And the last stage, it was really building out what customer experience, shifting from customer service to customer experience, building in things like the voice of customer. How does that play a role into it? Building things in like order management and customization. And so slowly things kept coming underneath that customer experience umbrella. And what we saw, of course, the impact of that is the more areas that you had the customer at the center, the better that end, impact was in the experience for the customer. So I loved every moment of it. And I would have happily stayed there longer if it wasn't for a knock on that door of a very intriguing offer of a very similar stage of business, right? Yeti was that, 5 years before hyper growth, a magical product, and a really, owner and a CEO who was obsessed with getting it right when it came down to customer experience. And so I said yes to that opportunity and jumped on over. So,
right. And excellent. And how long you've been at Woom?
I've been here for 3 years. So,
Okay.
Yeah. And about halfway through, that's when we merged customer experience with employee experience. So it's been a fun ride.
Well, neat. And it's an e-company, and the mission is to create products of such exceptional quality that they provide children and their parents with unforgettable experiences. Our hope, says the mission, is that children who experience these magical moments on their bikes will grow up to be adults who regularly ride their bikes and become ambassadors of the transport revolution. So what was the white space that Woom filled for what I understand is called the Woomsters, the Woomster Nation?
Yes, our Woomsters. I mean, I think, right, it's similar to Yeti, right? The idea of creating this product out of a garage, right, by two brothers and a best friend. And really that white space was, prior to it, really, children's bikes were very much viewed as shrunken down adult bikes, right? It's just a smaller version. The bike has been created and it's beautiful, and we just need to make a smaller version for the kiddos. And then also with that, right, kids grow fast and they aren't sure if they're going to stick with cycling. So the amount of attention that went into the quality of the bike just wasn't there. The margins weren't there. The quality wasn't there, all the things, right? There wasn't a really big motivation to invest in a high quality children's bike until I think when Woom came along, right? When the designer, Christian, they were expecting to have their first child and very excited, like he's a cycler, right? And I get to buy my kid their first bike, and quick realization that there wasn't that on the market, something that was designed just for them. And so that's what they did. I mean, so much before the product was even made, it was, okay, what's the children's anatomy? How are they learning things down to, our brakes having the green and the red, like all the things taken in consideration of how children learn, how their
Hmm.
body works, what they need to make this experience a really enjoyable one and one that they're not going to get discouraged by. That all went into the bike. And of course, the weight of the bike, right? These clunky children's bikes before that I know I grew up in, right, with training wheels and very, very heavy. These bikes are 40% lighter and kids can feel confident on it. So that was the space. It was that high quality children's bike that was specifically designed for the children riding it. And that's really been at the core of all of our product innovation.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the way you described the bike itself and the way it was designed. It reminds me of a couple of different products. And when we talk about customer experience design, employee experience, we're talking about the experience, and in many cases, things like financial services. There really isn't a physical product. They're really talking about the way they interact with things. Could be a laptop, an interface, a website. In the case of employee experience, similar things. There's not really a specific product. In this case, we have a product, and I think about products like the way you described it, like the Keurig machine. Right before Keurig, you had Mr. Coffee, and you had big filters and grains, and they still exist, I guess. And where you buy the grounds, you pour them in, you make a pot. Yep. Pretty much. You could make one cup, but really you're making a pot. You might as well make a pot. Right. And then you pour a cup or two, and then you're cleaning the carafe, you're removing the filter, throwing it away, buying the filters, throwing out the grains, and cleaning up the machine. And if you had guests over and somebody wanted decaf, or somebody wanted a flavor, or someone wanted a chai tea, you got to make another pot. And so Keurig came along and made the single cup serving model that has no cleanup required, or every 6 months or whenever you do that, and really designed the experience based on the way people ideally wanted to use them. And that's exactly what you describe with this bike is it's if you're listening to the episode today and you don't have either a customer experience or an experience design background, what April just described, exactly how she described it, is how do kids use things? How do they think about things? How do they learn? What do they like? Yeah. What are some models that like green and red, and the fact that it's light? That is classic experience design. Well done.
Totally. Yeah, you nailed it. And it's so funny because I think we overcomplicate it sometimes, right? We say meet our customers where they're at, and know what our customers need and make a product that that does that. But at the end of the day, that's what we are doing, or choosing not to do, right? And that's that choice we have every single decision we make, every single strategy we build, right? We can choose whether we put that customer at the center or not. And so we are intentionally trying to continue to put that customer there.
All right. So now tell us about the company. Tell us about a little bit about the demographic, the profile of the company, and then particularly how do you go to market? How do you distribute the product?
Yeah, so we were founded in Austria, so Vienna, Austria. That is where the company was founded at, and then it came to the U.S. the year after. And so, the main areas that we serve, of course, is North America and Europe, with the goal to continue to expand and continue to reach new customers. So we're split up that way as well. So we have, 2/3 of our team in Vienna, and then the other third here in Austin. And so we are, we made that merge a couple of years ago, and even that just from the employee experience side, and that merger and figuring out what works and what doesn't work has been quite the journey. But yeah, that's where our team is at. And we have, I think we're right around that 240 mark, of team members, and that get to show up every day and support this magic that we are doing. And how we get our product to the world also kind of varies on the different regions that we serve. So when we started in Europe, we went more of that traditional, multi-channel route. So distributors, independent dealers, as well as D2C. And over in US, we are almost 100% D2C. So 100% e-commerce. With the expansion of offline we're doing this year. But the intent behind the US and the why behind the model is, Matthias is one of the brothers and the founder for us here in the US is he knew how important it was to react quickly. And we knew this was selling a children's bike that cost, triple the amount that you typically would see through a website was unheard of 10 years ago, right? With the pandemic, it's become a little bit more common, but it just wasn't back then. And so knowing that, we wanted to be able to create that funnel to hear directly from our customers. And Matthias, of course, he has many stories of, on a Saturday when he's mowing his lawn, his cell phone was the customer service line. He would pick it up and he would figure out how to solve that customer's problem. But also that would then go and implement some kind of change that we would do based off that. So that was very intentional for that first decade of us being here to be able to have primarily a channel where we can connect directly and react quickly. And then we'd also apply that feedback to our full organization in Europe as well for product innovation, how we're showing up for services, et cetera.
So in the US here, it's all over the web, and in Europe, it's multi-channel. What's the split? Is it 50-50 of what gets purchased through online?
Yeah. So, here almost 100% online, and then about 25% over in Europe. And so we have a really strong partnership with the dealers that we sell through and our wholesale partners over there.
So I was going to ask you from a CX standpoint, how do you measure success? How do you measure, I'll ask you success in general, but particularly how the customer experience is going?
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, right, when we merged and we built out our customer experience function, we very intentionally early on, right, and this started in the US, we were a team of 40 a couple of years ago, we created a function for voice of customer. And so because we knew that measurement to keep that gauge was going to be critical. So while we were tracking customer satisfaction score, of course, through our communication platform, taking that 2 steps deeper into what we were measuring, what that feedback was, how we were doing. So some of those key measurements, of course, are going to be your standard, your CSAT score, your NPS score, which we measure in all the different areas as well. Of course, the response time and how we're servicing our customers. But I think what's also a really big part of, I think a unique part is our continuous improvement, like how we're doing with continuous improvement. So any actions taken out of those insights directly, whether it be from the post-purchase survey, through CSAT comments, through the NPS comments, what things are we putting into action? And we're following through, and then we can also measure the impact of those. So that's also a part of how we're measuring how we're doing with this thing.
Okay, excellent. And let me back up, and then I want to ask a question about continuous improvement. Yep. So you mentioned 240 employees. You shared the demography or demographics, and where headquarters is. I assume it's still privately owned.
Yes.
Privately held. Is there a stated goal of going public one day?
I think we want to leave it open. We want to grow. We want to grow on who we reach. And I think, that there's several different avenues that we can take with that. And I don't think we're opposed to any of them. And we'll continuously evaluate, okay, what does that next step of growth and impact look like? And then what strategy is going to best support not only us getting there, but it allows us to get there with keeping, our values and how we're trying to run this business at the core of it.
Yeah. I imagine being able to, you're small enough at 240 employees to be able to use VOC and other customer feedback to be able to make changes without going through a lot of as much red tape as you were if you were much larger.
Yeah. I think we know this, right? It's people, process, and systems. And, I was lucky enough to with Yeti, be able to support through their IPO. And there's different structures you have to put into place. And I think there's definitely still a way you can be a public company and have an agile, structure that allows you to move and react as you need, but it certainly takes different approaches.
Yeah. So tell me about how you collect the data, particularly, I guess you're going right to the consumers on the web purchases. When you're dealing with dealers and others, are you just asking the dealers their experience, or how does that work?
Yeah, currently that's exactly that is. We use the same platform for communication, to be able to communicate with our dealers and, building out those dealer surveys and knowing what their experience is. It's coming through the same funnel as our direct customer feedback is. One of the things, of course, we're looking at, and it's on the roadmap for this year, and I'm excited about it, is to continuously build out ways that we can further engage with our customers, even if they didn't purchase from our website, like our, having our customer accounts and, those clubs and those loyalty programs, to be able to further, kind of tighten that communication track with them. But we look at our dealers, we look at our distributors as, those are our customers as well. And so knowing what their experience is just as critical as that end customer.
Yeah, you just made me think about when you talk about the VOC and using the feedback, probably both the quantitative and qualitative feedback, right? Have you thought about this is something that best practices I keep hearing from people who come on my show in particular about co-creation, about customer co-creation. Is really having observing the kids or having the kids themselves talk about what they'd love to see.
Oh, yeah, I love that. And absolutely. I think right now, as far as how we structure it, it's more on the organic side. Just for example, a lot of our team members, right, have kiddos, and this it's an earlier stage on a product innovation, and we had them come to the office, and bless it, they tell us the truth. They tell us what they like, what they don't like. And, oh, I don't like that color. What are you thinking? And so I think definitely from that organic side and internal, and that's absolutely the goal, to continue that and build out that strategy. That I don't think there's any other way we can do it. It's, pushing up against the people who are going to use it. So.
Well, you've been there, April, 3 years now, and I know in the life of a CX pro, 3 years is not a lot of time, really. It's just enough time maybe to get a baseline on certain things down, and maybe if you're lucky, compare it, once to what the original baseline was, but not much more than that. But I'm wondering, when you think about what you've accomplished so far? Either in the design of the bicycles, the distribution, in terms of the experience, what are you most proud of? What would you say in terms of outcomes? Is there an example of something that's changed because of the work you and your team did?
It's a great question, and you are spot on. It's not a lot of time, and it is very much, that first part of it. We know those first couple of years, it is establishing baseline, especially if you walked in where there just wasn't that foundation set yet.
Right.
So that was a big part of it. And I think probably the piece that I'm most proud about is that with that voice of customer, it is everything that went into it, right? Not only from setting up the platform to having the ability to collect that information, to be able to distribute that information, to really close to having that information be self-serviceable. In some ways it already is, and we want to get better and better. So anyone in the organization can grab it, and sharing out that link and saying, here's what the NPS information's coming in. This is specifically the areas they're mentioning, assembly and quality. So those teams can go and grab and build it in. I think that's a huge, huge accomplishment. And then also just for the team, they're a part of that, right? As far as not just what the customer is saying directly, but how they're inputting, why those customers are calling us or emailing us. It wouldn't be possible to get this level of data without them investing that time and being intentional and supportive with it. And so, so I think those two things are huge, and it's really laid a big foundation of how we can continuously make sure that we can build in that voice of customer in our strategies.
So if you think about, I'm thinking about like either the bicycle itself, you've got everything from, you mentioned the weight of it, but you've got safety issues, you've got packaging to get it out there safely. What's changed over the last, year or so as you think about the way they experience, receiving or using the bike?
I think the receiving of the bike is the big one, even from just the outside of what our boxes look like. That was something that was really built on, okay, what is this? This is a moment. This is it's a beautiful moment that we can really expand on and create one of those magic moments. And so if you order our product, it has this phrase saying happy childhood, inside here. And then also on some of our products, it also has things that are cartoon characters that the kiddos can color. And so those are things that went into based on the feedback from our customers. So aside from just the simply, which is also very intentionally simple, and we had children test out trying to build their product and how long it would take them and could they do it with the Allen wrench. But I think it's between the practical piece to it and then also some of those magic moments that have been created based on that feedback as well. So those are a couple of things just from that, the wow moment of getting the product that have been improved based on the customer feedback.
Is there anything, when you think about the experience of receiving it, and I'm thinking about Joe Pine is a recent guest of mine on the show, and he wrote a book called The Experience Economy. And that came out of some earlier work he did on mass customization and this idea of individualization of the product. And I guess they get to choose the size, the color of the bike. Do they get anything like with their name on it? Or is there anything that's more unique that they get to select that personalizes it for them?
Yeah, we used to do where they could order their nameplates. And that's something that we want to continue to do in the future as well. And I think you're spot on. That's that next step that, allowing them to really customize their own experience. So we have the helmets, we have the gloves, we have the Nebos. They can, from that color standpoint, that's really our primary way to customize at the end product, and not just the bike, but the full gear, which is great. And that's also, from that color perspective, it's an emotional tie. We see that from that repurchase rate. If you got that, woom 1 in yellow, we see that woom 2 is going to be in yellow as well. And so once kiddos find that color that they really enjoy, they tend to stick with it. So that's some of the ways, but we want to continue to explore that because that's that next level, meet our customer where they're at.
Yeah. So you're adding more value into the product. So bicycles have been around for a long time, a couple hundred years, I don't know. But you're really, adding some value, going after a niche, and not discounting at all. You're just shared, you've sold it for, triple than sort of the average. Are you at liberty to share sort of either the revenues or the number of units or any increased numbers?
Yeah, for sure. I'll stick with maybe units. And it was a big milestone moment for us this past year. We had surpassed the 1 million mark of bikes sold. And so, we used to just always say loosely to make millions of children love to fall in love with cycling, right? A part of our mission. And so it was pretty cool whenever we were like, that's actually happened, that milestone has happened, that we have impacted a million plus kiddos. And so, that was a big deal for us for sure. And then for growth rate, it's been hyper growth pretty much since day one. Of course, with the pandemic, we were shooting up in those 150 and 200%, growth rates. And now it's normalizing, back into that steady, healthy, consistent growth as well. So it's been definitely a plane ride since the get-go with it.
And what is next for you guys? What's on the drawing board?
like say what's not next. And because I get a question all the time, are you going to expand into adult bikes, or would, the type of bikes that you're selling? And that's a no. We are, we started as a children's bike company. We want to continue along that. And so, this last year was a really big year. We launched our urban bike, and now we have, our road bike, our original bike that, you ride on the street, your mountain bike that you can take more in the hills, for the e-bike, for the kiddos that are going a longer distance, especially with their parents, and then our urban bike. And so those were really big steps for us as far as the product itself. And so that next stage is going to be a little bit less in regards to, a ton of new waves of different types, but it's how we're reaching our customers, who we're reaching, and then also the services that are coming along with it. So that's within our direct focus right now. Innovation will always be at the core of everything we do. So that team is specifically always looking ahead. But for the immediate future, it's really expanding the customers that we're serving.
Neat. Well, really, really interesting. Loved the conversation. Let's just finish up with talking about the employee experience there at woom, because I imagine you mentioned innovation. It's an innovative company, even though it's an old product category. Mm-hmm. And what's your strategy around EX, and what kinds of things are you doing to attract and retain the best talent?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's the same as our customers, right? It's meeting our people where they're at. And that's our approach for EX as well, knowing that we are very intentionally trying to build this diverse table of people with different superpowers and different talents and different perspectives and backgrounds. And I mean, that's an intentional part of our strategy, and how we optimize this environment in which they operate in, that's also a part of it. And what it's not one size fits all. And so that'd be way too simple, right? And we know that, just like serving our external customers, you can't just do it through one channel and one way. It's really that multiple approach. And it starts with getting to know our people and the ways that we can best serve them. And so a lot of the practices that we do for our external customers, we do for our internal customers. And we ask them to hold us accountable for it, and they give us feedback. We act on the feedback. If we don't act on the feedback, they say, hey, what's going on with that? Remember we said we want more of the learning and development opportunities, or want to have, a more flexible office experience. I mean, they're telling us what they need in order to thrive at woom and to bring their best selves, their whole selves to the table. And so it's up to us to act on it. Or if we say, hey, we hear you, but we aren't able to act on this right now, that's also our responsibility to tell them that. So that's how we approach EX, and our retention and our engagement, all those things, I think, are a really big reflection of that. We're honest, we are not perfect at anything we do, but our intentions are there in order to put them at the center, and that will remain the strategy with it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your humility and realism around it. It's a hard market, and now to attract and retain any employees in any industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. It is. And that, I think it's that continual, not taking it for granted about what our retention rate is, and what that engagement rate is. And I know how tough it is out there. And for us, it's just a matter of continuing to say who we are, and create the space for them to say, this is who I am, and this is how I want to contribute to your mission and your vision. And, continuously investing and honoring that space for them to come and show up. And so we'll keep that at the center of it.
Is there anything you do with employee onboarding that exposes them to the work that you do?
Definitely. Yes. I mean, so one fun part, we do, the first couple of days onboarding, it's pretty intense. But there's a longer term onboarding, over the next 3 months. And a part of that is they get to build a bike, and they have a little contest with it. So just really knowing what our customers go through, they are doing it, and it's great. And we have fun little rewards. You can do it the fastest, et cetera. So It's hands-on with our product. And our amazing global CX leader, she also incorporated that in some of the interview processes, which I thought was a wonderful idea as well. So hands on the product. And then, of course, just hearing the voice of the customer, and that's not just within onboarding, but it's also ongoing. We have CX days where anyone in the organization, come sit with us on phone calls, answer some emails. We just had a couple weeks ago where we had expected higher volume of emails, and come sign up, we'll get you all ready to go. And they were interacting with the customers. So it's definitely a part of not only onboarding, but just life at Woom.
Well, that's cool. I love that. Build the bicycle.
Oh, yes. They give us great feedback. It's fantastic. It's like, have you thought of this? So it's all sorts of different channels to get that feedback, but hands on the product is important for sure.
I think it really is that whole walk through the journey of a customer for every employee to try and get a sense of, and not only that, the kind of work that your group is doing is listening to employees, listening to customers, using a cycle to make it a closed feedback loop and improve the product and improve the experience for the employees.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we know as we grow, right, it gets harder to do that. There's different muscles you have to flex and structures you have to put in place. And so having that, as far as the awareness of it is, I think it's at the foundation, and we'll just continue to say, how do we do it now with this size? Or when we open up another headquarters somewhere, it's as we grow, never letting this escape too much from that overall strategy.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is awesome. I really enjoyed getting to meet you and hear your story. One final question on a more personal level is, what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
I love that. I think, I've said this before when people ask me, internally as well, if you could start over, what would you do differently? And I think from the CX world, I would have learned a lot sooner about tying customer impact to financials. And that was a skill I just learned a couple of years ago. And it's so valuable because just like meeting our customers where they're at, we have to meet our different functions of the business where they're at. Right. And so to be able to do that is really key. So it helps us evaluate why we do things, what is the impact of when we do them, and a financial standpoint. So I would say get that financial acumen in the books early. That's what I would tell that 20-year-old. Feel all the feels, but also having data in numbers alongside the feels is critical.
Yeah, that's a great one. I wish I had learned it a lot earlier in my career as well. So that's great advice. Hey, April, thank you so much for being on the Delighted Customers podcast. It was a pleasure meeting you and hearing your story.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate all you are doing in the CX world. I'm loving following all the content in the community that's being built because of it. So thank you for investing in this space.
All right. Thanks, April. Thanks for listening to the Delighted Customers podcast. I'd like to ask you a favor. If you have enjoyed this episode or any of my other ones, hit subscribe or follow. I've got a lot of other great guests that are coming up and a lot of other great content, and I don't want you to miss anything. You can find any links or references on the show in the show notes, and you can find those on my website at empoweredcx.com.